It seems that Black Wednesday has now turned into Black Friday as more releases come down in the WWE during a live show. Yes, this is real, folks. Plus, a retirement from an EVP of AEW? Maybe? We're going to cover all that and more on this edition of the Pie Bomb Wrestling Podcast. The bomb drops now. Hello and welcome to your Thursday edition of the Pie Bomb Wrestling Podcast, the show that is for the fans, by the fans. We appreciate you hanging out with us, whether you are listening on SportsWire, formerly Sportinarium Radio. That's still sportinarium.com/player. If you're listening there, thank you so much for doing that. Make sure you follow us on social media. We are at PBW Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel where you get bonus content, all of our archived episodes, as well as the video version of this show. I am your phenomenal host, Mr. Podcasting, Chris Belcher. You can follow me at Chris Belcher 24. And joining me today is my tag team partner, the indie darling, Mr. Andy York, repping the brand there. I love it. What's going on, man?
Not much. You gotta promote the brand even on the brand. So you gotta make it work some way, somehow.
Exactly. You can never have too much brand, as you can see by the background of our video version of the podcast. Speaking of the brand, I am not wearing a New Orleans Saints t-shirt for all of you who may be wondering. This is a WrestleMania 2018 shirt. It just happened to be from New Orleans. All right.
I was going to ask.
As you can see behind me, there's a Titans mask back there. I'm a Titans fan. But anyway, that's all beside the point. Lots of wrestling to get to, man. But before we do, again, make sure you subscribe to all of our channels. Like us on social media. Listen to all the other great shows over on SportsWire. They are in the middle of a brand shift right now. So make sure that you are keeping up with that. Follow along with all those great shows. Thanks to Tom and the crew over there. I really appreciate your support. I was actually, Andy, on their call-in show on Sunday, called in, gave a little tease about some future episodes. And also we teased a big announcement regarding our show and SportsWire that I'm going to make at the end of the podcast. So if you are listening, stay tuned to the end. We have a big announcement regarding a future, let's say a future collaboration between SportsWire and the Pie Bomb Wrestling Podcast. So tune in for that. Make sure you do that. Also, make sure you hop on over to ProWrestlingTees.com/PBW Podcast. You can get you a shirt just like the one that Andy's wearing. We got a couple more designs over there that I'm sure it will be great for anybody. There's a design over there for anybody. So make sure you select a shirt, support the podcast. We appreciate that very much. On to the wrestling news. Andy, I teased it at the top. We were recording last week during AEW. Full disclosure, we are recording tonight during NXT. So there may be some things that we just drop in. Last week we were recording during AEW, and we were talking all about the Malachi Black Cody Rhodes match and how it was a squash and how there was a promo by Cody Rhodes at the end that we couldn't hear because we were recording. We need to address that promo. Yeah. Because it very much seemed like Cody Rhodes hinted at least at hanging up the boots. Maybe it's for good. Maybe it's just on a full-time basis. He's an EVP of the company, so he's always going to be around. Mm-hmm. What's your take on that? Or is it just part of the storyline to make Malachi look better?
I don't really know. I think it's obviously definitely part of the storyline because Malachi attacking definitely set up something later on. It was probably more just to get Cody off TV for a little while so he can go do his judging thing that he does on TNT as well. Right. So it's probably to do that, and then he'll come back probably before All Out, maybe at All Out, something like that. So that's probably to set that up, but it's a weird way to go because he's not that. I mean, it's not that believable for him to retire. If it was like Sting or somebody else, that's obviously much more believable. So. It could also be like him kind of pulling back the curtain a little bit, saying maybe he's going to take less of a role on TV, and focus more on the EVP side of everything. and trying to, promote. Now that they've kind of got AEW established, they don't need him to be on the forefront of everything like they did in the beginning. So he's probably going to start taking a step back to give guys like Malachi Black and Andrade and, some other rumored people that are more than likely going to show up. Because if somebody doesn't show up in Chicago, they just need to cancel all the Chicago shows because it's not going to end well for them.
No.
But if him taking a step back to add more room for some of these other people is probably really smart. Because he can be one of those guys that can just come in, do something, go away for a little while, and it's going to be a special attraction. But still, it was a weird angle, to say the least. I mean, it got great heat on Malachi and it made him look even more like a big deal, but it was kind of weird from that point.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's just maybe a retirement from full-time competition. He did a great job in helping establish AEW for the first, 2.5, 3 years, I guess, wherever we're at now. He did a great job doing that. So maybe it is that. Is he almost 40? Is he approaching 40 or is he at 40 already? Do you know?
I can look real quick. I think he is.
I thought he was
close to 40.
I thought he was close to 40. I'm not 100% sure. You'll tell me.
He's 36.
36. Okay. So I feel like he's still got a little ways to go as far as full-time competition, because whether people like it or not, whether they feel like Cody's being shoved down their throat or not, he adds a lot to the brand.
He does
on the wrestling side. He really does. He's a really good wrestler. He's got a great promo. Obviously, he's got the wrestling lineage. He's got all, yada, yada, yada. The list goes on. He's an asset to that company that I'm not going to say they can't afford to lose, because like you said, they've got replacements now. This gives the opportunity for some other guys to have a spot, but I don't know. To me, it's a wait and see kind of thing. Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of people say that like Cody has taken on like a Triple H role during his reign of terror in 2002, was it?
2002, 2003.
Yeah. Where he has like not put over young talent, but he tied with Darby Allin. He put over Darby Allin basically. He made Malachi Black look like $1 million. He put over Brody Lee. He got squashed on live TV twice by Malachi Black and by Brody Lee.
Yep.
Even in like the Anthony Ogogo match, like he didn't put him over, but Ogogo looked good after that still. So like, it's not the fact that he wins some of these matches. It's just like being in the ring with Cody is not necessarily at the same level as Chris Jericho, but it's very similar in some ways of like, he's a well-known guy that just being in the ring with him kind of gets you over. And if you can, if people leave the match saying, look how good this person was against Cody, you're getting yourself over. And he's really good at doing that. I think he's done that in AEW for sure.
Okay. Let me piggyback on that thought and let me see what you think about this. So let's say that is a fair comparison. I don't think it is, but let's say it's a fair comparison with Triple H's reign of terror. So right out of the gate, Cody loses a world title match and says he's never going to challenge for the world title. Okay, right out the gate. Like we're talking AEW launched in October and he lost that match in November. Okay, so right out the gate, he's not going to be a world champion. So if he is on this reign of terror and what everybody is saying could be perceived as the truth, do you then think he's just use that to bury the mid-card talent instead of the main event talent?
I don't think so, because someone like Darby Allin could very easily be a buried mid-card talent, and he's not. He's very prominent in AEW. You look at, obviously Brody Lee passed away, but before he unfortunately passed away, he was one of the biggest stars in AEW with the Dark Order and as the leader of the Dark Order and things like that. So he was definitely one of those. So I don't think he is. I don't think he is burying people. I think he has done a great job. I actually, when he did the whole stipulation of if he loses that world title match and he never challenges again, I hated that because because you're
to this day,
just because you're an EVP doesn't mean that you don't deserve to be in the world title picture, because it makes somebody like, let's say Hangman Page ends up winning, or even Kenny Omega versus Cody Rhodes. You're not going to tell me that's not a marquee match for the AEW World Title. So
bingo. Look, capitalize on what he said in his promo. He's mentioned the heat between EVPs. Now, he didn't go into it, but he mentioned it. So right there, use real life and put that in a storyline, and there's a marquee championship match.
Yeah, and I get that you don't want it to be perceived as this is just a company for the elite to just do what they want to do. 3 years into that, I don't think anybody's really ever said that this is just a company for the elite to do what they want to do. It took 3 years to get Kenny Omega a title, and it took like 2.5 years to put the tag titles on the Young Bucks. So they've definitely they've definitely not made it about themselves. But I mean, it's hard for them too, because like they are 4 of the most known talent outside of WWE. And so like they have to do what they have to do to build up their brand to, take it into the future. So I think, they started off kind of rough with it. And I think they're slowly they're doing much better with it now. They're capitalizing on a lot more things now. And Cody kind of stepping away from it, doesn't hurt them, but it doesn't help them in a lot of ways either. So it's a weird decision. But maybe it just gets him off TV for this. And then maybe he just comes back to fight Malachi Black again or whatever happens. But, it was a great promo. Cody Rhodes can cut a promo like nobody else, really. He's one of the best promo guys, I think, in all of wrestling. And so he did a great job. He definitely has his dad's trait in that. I mean, he does a great job with that. And leaving the boot in the ring, and the commentary actually sold it really well, I thought. And so overall, the segment was great. It was just a very confusing ending to AEW last week.
Sure. It definitely was. But I definitely wanted to address that on here because we were kind of trying to watch it and trying to follow it and trying to be engaged with what we were doing. But it was really distracting. So I want to make sure that we covered that and got our thoughts on it. The other thing I want to bring up about AEW before we move on is maybe you can explain this to me. I've been very vocal on this podcast ever since the existence of AEW about a lot of things, but this one in particular, their women's division. I went on record saying that if Britt Baker did not win the championship at Double or Nothing, that the division was just dead to me, and she won. Just prove me wrong. But another issue that has been resurfacing for me is the fact that AEW continues to push the NWA Women's Championship. The issue that I don't have a problem with you partnering with other brands or featuring other brand superstars or what have you. I don't mind that. What I mind is your women's division struggles enough and doesn't get enough television time. Why are you promoting another brand's championship in its place? Does that make sense, or am I off base?
No, it makes sense. I don't fully understand. I mean, I think obviously Nick Aldis does not. I think he's been very vocal about not wanting to work a lot in AEW or at all in AEW. So if they're going to have a working relationship with the NWA, they have to find some outlet for that. And the women's division, I think, you could use, but you have to utilize your talent first before you utilize another company's talent. And they haven't really done that a lot, which I agree with. I think we are going to see some bigger, well-known talent come in. I think Ruby Riott, former Ruby Riott, I forget what she goes by now.
Starts with an S. I remember. For sure.
But I think she will more likely go to AEW. I think that's a really big get for them. I think she's going to do really good there as long as they continue to push her. And Britt Baker has done a fantastic job. I think she hasn't done a whole lot, but she is definitely the women's division right now. And so the more that they can support her and bring more people around her and push that division up, I think you're totally right. Though the NWA women's title being forefront over your own title seems a little off to me.
See, what I would do is you've got all these other shows. If you want to promote it, put it on one of the other shows.
Yeah.
Put it on Rampage, put it on Dark Elevation, what have you. Put it there, but don't take TV time away from your women's division for another company's women's division. Like they had a number one contenders match for the NWA Women's Championship on last week's Dynamite. Well, why don't you make that for Britt's title? Like I know Britt and Red Velvet are kind of doing their thing or whatever, but like drum up your own business.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sure that there's deeper meanings behind it. I'm sure they have their reasons. I'm not
Mhm.
behind the scenes. I don't know. I wish I was. Shout out to Cody Rhodes if you want to give me a job. But but yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it. But I don't get a lot of things about AEW, but I still would like to have a job, Cody Rhodes, if you're listening. Anyway.
Listen, I love the product, Cody. I absolutely adore the product. So if you want to hire me, you can hire me, and I will kiss that AEW ring all the time.
Well, listen, you can just hire me for commentary because I'm going to do exactly what JR does, which is put down the talent instead of making them look better.
Mess up the names or mess up the names and say, well, why would you do that move?
Exactly. But heck, at least I won't call it WWE Dynamite. Okay. So let's just
poor JR.
I went there. No, not poor JR. He needs to retire, but
he needs to just go behind the scenes.
He does. Yep. Yeah. You're right. Anyway, so let's move on to the WWE before we get to some releases that actually happened during Friday Night SmackDown last week. Let's get to SmackDown itself. And I just want to say, man, I know that next week, by the way, make sure you tune into next week's podcast. Next Thursday will be a full-blown SummerSlam and NXT TakeOver 36 preview with myself, with Andy, and with Jared Justice. It's going to be the three of us previewing both of these shows, so I can't wait. I don't want to give away too much SummerSlam stuff because I want to save it for that, but I will say this, Andy. The more and more I watch SmackDown, and the more that I see the Mysterios and the Usos and this storyline, I am so pumped for this match at SummerSlam, man. I know that maybe a lot of people might not be, but dude, I am stoked. Their Money in the Bank kickoff match was incredible. Mm-hmm. I can't wait. This tag team match is going to be awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, the Usos don't really have a bad match. Like they even their lower matches are still, compared to others, are up there. Like they're really, really strong. So I fully expect this. Plus, Rey Mysterio may be a little older, but the guy can still go. He's still really quick. His son, I'm a huge fan of his son. Dominic is big and tall, but he's fast and he's very athletic. And so I think that if they can kind of be behind him and push him a little bit, I think he could be a big star one day in the WWE. But I fully expect this to be a match that could very potentially steal the show. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Everything that Roman Reigns is involved in right now is just absolute money. I mean, a year ago, 2 years ago, if I would have said anything good about Roman Reigns, there was nothing really good to say about Roman, and now he's just at the top of his game. So him and John Cena are really kind of carrying a lot of things right now, making it worth it to kind of stick around. There are a lot of other people doing some good things, but they are definitely in a league of their own right now.
They are proving why they're superstars.
Yep.
I mean, that there's no doubt about it. Are you noticing the seeds that are getting planted for the Dominic turn?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh man, I can't wait.
I hope they don't
wait.
I hope they don't try to do like a Vince Russo and have Ray actually turn on Dominic, because it just doesn't make sense.
No, that makes
just have Dominic sense. just go like crazy on him.
I'm not looking forward to what Dominic will be like as a heel. I don't know what that's going to be, but man, they started planting those seeds and I was like, oh, they're going to do it. I can't wait. It's going to be awesome.
Oh yeah,
man. One of the other things that we haven't talked about since we've had fans back in the stands that before we go to that, you talked about Roman Reigns. You talked about John Cena. Let's throw Finn Balor into that mix because he's been inserted into that as well. Man, you said it. They've been doing some great stuff. And the only thing that I'm concerned about, as great as everything has been, the only thing I'm concerned about is Balor actually getting added to the match. Like them actually pulling the trigger on that. If you've listened to this podcast at all over the last 36 episodes, you know that I'm a Finn Balor fan and I'm not putting him down as a wrestler.
Right.
But I think this match needs to stay one-on-one. I don't think we need to put Balor in the middle of it. I feel like they're headed that way. Maybe John Cena next Friday will be willing to put his spot up against Balor and then Cena will beat him. I don't know. What's your thoughts?
I hope they don't put him in either, because I definitely think Roman Cena is a main event caliber match by itself. I mean, if they put Finn Balor in there, it's going to be a great match as well. But I think the story needs just this one-on-one match, especially if they're going to lead to something like Roman versus The Rock, maybe at WrestleMania. He needs to beat Cena clean by himself, nobody else in the ring. So I think that would be very important. I don't know what they're going to do with Finn though, because they've put him in this match, or they put him in this feud, and they don't want him to be off SummerSlam. So I don't know if maybe we're going to get Balor versus Corbin again. Maybe I don't know what we're going to really get with Balor, but I hope that they kind of keep this a one-on-one match and then do something with Finn at SummerSlam. Maybe he gets in a feud with. I'm trying to think who's on SmackDown. I don't know who's on SmackDown.
Heel. I mean, I think it should feud with Apollo Crews.
Yeah,
but I don't know. Like, you can't just throw that onto SummerSlam for no reason.
Right.
I really think that they're trying to set this up for when Cena leaves, that they already have this story in place with Balor and with Reigns. Because I don't know how quickly the next pay-per-view is, so I don't know what the turnaround time will be for setting up for Reigns' next opponent.
Right.
I don't know, but I don't know, man. Like you said, Reigns and Cena, that's a main event caliber match. We've only seen it once, and it was at a random pay-per-view. We need to see it on the big stage with Roman truly, I don't want to say in his prime, because I feel like he was still doing great work back then, but as far as a character goes, this is Roman Reigns, and we need to see him against hustle, loyalty, respect, the man, John Cena, So I want to see it one-on-one. It's not going to be a bad thing, I guess, if Balor gets added, because obviously Balor can add to the match, and it's going to be great either way. They had a main event triple threat match for WrestleMania. I just don't see them doing it twice.
No, and I think you could even do a triple threat in the next pay-per-view with Roman, Finn, and Seth. Because Seth is due. If Seth goes over at SummerSlam, which I don't know if he actually will or not, that's a discussion for next week. But if Seth does go over, then you have Seth and Finn that are both right at the top, ready for that world title picture. And so I don't know if you would just do a one-on-one match with both of them, and then maybe Roman gets involved, and then we have a triple threat or whatever. But I think you hold off that triple threat for the next pay-per-view, or even a couple pay-per-views down the line if you really wanted to, and you make this a one-on-one match like it needs to be.
Yep, I agree with that. The other thing I want to talk about, and I bring this up on SmackDown, even though with the crowds coming back in, we saw a change in the sets, and there wasn't much of a change. It's still just a big LED board or whatever, which is kind of what it was before the pandemic, during and after. So, not really a whole lot of change, but the graphics have certainly improved for each superstar. And in particular, I bring this up while we're talking about SmackDown, because I don't know if you noticed it or not, but Apollo Crews' graphics on SmackDown blew me away, man. And all you people who are listening to this podcast are probably thinking, what is this dude talking about? Go back and look at it. It's this huge Nigerian palace with these massive lion statue things. And dude, oh my gosh. This set is definitely not to be overlooked. I mean, Jared and I knocked the big screen at WrestleMania 35, probably for good reason, but this is like miles ahead of that. They've done some really good stuff.
I'm a big fan of the big LED board. I think it works with some people and it doesn't work with everybody. Like John Cena, his massive Titantron thing that comes up. It looks really, really cool for him. AJ Styles on Monday, his phenomenal was phenomenal.
Dude, the way
it was nice.
The way they have it kind of curved. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So good.
I know it's not like obviously everybody's waiting for the SmackDown set to come back with the massive fist. Everybody's waiting for that. I'm a part of that crew. But what we have now, I mean, it works. It's a lot better than some of the stuff we've had in the past. And so the set is very nice, and it's more inviting, and it feels like it's a bigger deal now. And I think that's really important.
You can do more stuff with it.
Yeah.
You have the ability to be extremely creative with it. Now, you're not going to have guys go jumping off the Tron like Cactus Jack in 1997.
Right.
Or Shane McMahon falling off of it in 2000, what was it, 2001, I think?
Yeah.
You're not going to have that, but you're still going to have this new age of where we're at as far as technology and wrestling and entertainment and that kind of thing.
Right.
So,
yeah.
I think that's really cool. Something I don't think is cool. Let's move on to Monday Night Raw. And I hate to go ahead and spoil my turd sandwich, but I'm going to tell you it's my turd sandwich right now. And I'll remind you again, this is how much I hate it. It gets me fired up, Andy. Is Elias. The killing of the Elias character.
Yeah.
What the heck is happening? Why? Literally, like, this is not me exaggerating, man. Elias has been one of my favorite characters since he debuted. Why are you taking him away?
I don't, especially right before, like, he hasn't even been back, I don't think, in front of a live crowd. And, like, that's where he is his best, is in front of a live crowd. So I don't know why I mean, it could be his decision. He could just be done with the gimmick, done with the character, and wants to do something different, which if he wants to, then, you know, good for him, or if he has something better. But I don't know. It's weird. The Elias gimmick is one that should not work, but it works with him. And he's really funny with it. He's one of the guys that him and Kevin Owens are the guys that have gotten the most heat in a live crowd in years, like getting booed for 30 minutes straight almost. And so, like, I don't know why you're getting rid of this character, especially right when crowds are coming back and everything. So I'm with you. I think it's a bad decision. But you know, something different could come from it. Maybe he comes out with a drum now instead of a guitar.
Oh gosh. No,
he'll be the little drummer boy.
Listen, I'm a drummer, all right, and I don't like that idea. I think that, no, like Elias. I don't know, man. I'm just really sour on it. I hate the idea of him not being the guitar guy. Because listen, I'm going to point everybody back to this. If you have not watched, it's Money in the Bank 2018 Intercontinental Championship match, Elias versus Seth Rollins. It's the only title shot outside 24/7 championship that Elias has gotten, I'm pretty sure. If you are sleeping on Elias and his abilities, go watch that match. Because those two stole the show that night. This guy, I just hate that. Maybe, okay, the positive side of this is maybe he does less in-ring promos and interviews and gimmicks, and maybe he wrestles a little more. Okay, if that's the trade-off and we're going to push him in the ring, I can get down with that. But what's his character going to be? You know?
Yeah. I don't
want to see a total overhaul.
I don't either. And, you know, I definitely want to see him get in the ring, because there was a stretch where he did not get, I don't think he wrestled for like 8 months at one point or something. It was some ridiculous number that he hadn't wrestled in months. And so I definitely hope we do get to see him back in the ring, but I'm with you. I don't want to see an overhaul. I don't want to see a completely different character, because the Drifter gimmick, the Drifter gimmick was really great in the beginning, especially when he debuted, and with Corey Graves on commentary and all of that. That was just absolutely perfect. And so I hope that we get something like that, or that he does something really, really interesting or cool. But, you know, it's definitely a shame that we won't get to see the Elias gimmick anymore, it seems like.
Well, if you are just now joining us and enjoying our ranting and raving about wrestling, it's what we do here on the Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast, the show that is for the fans, by the fans. I am your phenomenal host, Chris Belcher. You can follow me at Chris Belcher24. The show is at PBW Podcast. We are available wherever you find your podcast, and on YouTube, and on Twitch, and on SportsWire Sports Radio, formerly Sportnarium Radio. Thank you for listening if you are listening there. Shout out to Tom and their crew for all of their support. We appreciate them very much. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, we have a very special announcement about a special collaboration between us and SportsWire. make sure you listen through to the end of the episode. We will drop that breaking news. All right. I am joined tonight by the indie darling, my tag team partner, Mr. Andy York. And we've been talking about AEW. We have been talking about SmackDown. We've touched on Monday Night Raw. Let's hit a couple more things from Monday Night Raw. We could not do a WWE wrestling podcast without talking about the Viper, Randy Orton, making his long-awaited return after being gone for 7 weeks. Dude, this was the first time he was in front of a live crowd.
Yeah.
And holy smokes, they ate it up.
Yeah.
He loved it.
He is definitely. I'm so glad that he's back. I love the mustache. I love the bald head, like the shave cut with the mustache. Oh, I love it.
I hate the Fu Manchu nonsense that he's
especially with like what he's doing with Matt Riddle. Especially what he's doing with Riddle. It's like he's going through his midlife crisis right now, and I love it. Like I absolutely love it. I love midlife crisis Randy, and I love going broke Baron Corbin. I love both of those things to death.
Listen, I love going broke Baron Corbin. I think
it's the best Baron Corbin's been since he debuted. It's
good.
He's really good at it too. And so like I am all for the downward slope of Baron Corbin, but I also love the stash looking Randy Orton. And I love it. I think he looks amazing. $1,000. I'm so glad that he's back. I know you probably hate it. I love what he's doing with Matt Riddle. I think RK Bro is RK Bro could be what Y2 AJ was when those two got together. Like it should not work really, but they work really well together, and it's funny. Randy Orton hugging him and then RKOing him and then smiling and laughing, and it was just perfect. Everything about it was perfect. So I'm so happy he's back. I'm so glad that he's back. I'm excited. I'm more excited now for Monday Night Raw just because I get to see Randy Orton every week. So that's a big plus.
To me, what makes RK Bro entertaining, if at all, because let me just say there have been moments where I have laughed. Okay. I can't stand Matt Riddle, but I will admit there have been moments where I've laughed. The reason that I've laughed, though, is because of Randy Orton.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because Randy makes it. Like Riddle is just doing his thing.
Yeah.
And Randy's like, we had a couple of matches. And then we got a buzz on social media.
Yeah. I love it.
Some of the things that he throws in is just really, really fun. So kudos to Randy Orton in his midlife crisis, if that's what we want to call it. I think that's genius. I wish I'd have come up with that. Anyway. But dude, no pun intended or pun intended, phenomenal match with AJ Styles in the main event.
Yeah.
Fantastic finish, the RKO off of the phenomenal forearm. Just some really, really good stuff. Randy hasn't missed a beat in 7 weeks. AJ proves why he's still the best in-ring competitor in WWE. And I got to see that match live at WrestleMania 35. So getting to see it on the main event of Raw this week was really, really cool. I thought we were going to see AJ and Omos against RK Bro at SummerSlam. We still might. But that RKO at the end of the show kind of throws a wrench into it.
Kind of, but Byron Saxton on commentary was like, I think they got back together. So like, I think it was just Randy being Randy as what it was. I didn't read it as much of a turn because of Randy's reaction to it, because he was he didn't have the sadistic smile. He was laughing like it was funny. Like he's just messing with them.
He had been telling Riddle to shut up all night long, and he wouldn't shut up. So maybe that was Randy's way of shutting him up. Okay, I get that.
I think we more than likely are still going to get that match at SummerSlam, and then that's probably when Randy is just going to absolutely break loose on him. Or I think they may actually put the titles on RK Bro for a little bit, and then Randy turns on him, and then we go and we have that feud going on. But to me, the more RK Bro we get, the better. I almost bought a T-shirt of the scooter with the little snake on it because it's so funny. I love it. I absolutely love it. I may be the only one in the world that I'm okay with being an RK Bro mark, but I'm fine with it. I love it.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe you. Now let me tell you this: as much as I don't like RK Bro, I hope that they do win the tag titles, because I want to see them more than I want to see AJ and Omos continue as champions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because as much as that's been a cool duo, it's whatever. They're funny. I want to see AJ get back to where he needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
We're nearing the end of AJ's full-time run, I'm sure. So I need to see some more main event AJ Styles. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me throw something else out that's been really good over the last several weeks, really the last several months of Monday Night Raw. I don't know how much traction this is getting online, but it's getting some attention here on the Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast. And that is the work that The Miz, John Morrison, Damian Priest, and Ricochet, and I'll throw in Sheamus now.
Mm-hmm.
The work that those guys have been putting in, oh my gosh. If you don't think that Raw has good wrestling, and some of it is not great. Don't get me wrong. Friend of the show, Jason Backowitz, and I were talking about, you're comparing WWE to AEW and it's apples and oranges. Well, if Raw is the apples, they definitely have to be a red apple because sometimes those apples are really, really good. And sometimes they're like sack lunch apples and they're terrible. There are some terrible things on Monday Night Raw. Don't get me wrong, but the stuff these guys have been doing, dude, that's good wrestling right there.
Yeah. I definitely agree. I think, kind of going off what you were saying, I think the whole reason why it's sometimes really hard, even when the wrestling is good, to get through Monday Night Raw is just the whole 3 hours, because you're going to get like 45 minutes of really good stuff every once in a while, and then it's just the rest is just filler, and it's kind of seems hard to get through.
You don't know when that 45 minutes is going to come.
Yeah, and when it comes, sometimes you're so bored of it, it's like, oh yeah, that was really good. Okay, whatever. Like you're not really ready for it. You're not really engaged for it. So, but I definitely agree. I think Damian Priest and Ricochet, Miz and Morrison and Sheamus, they all deserve credit. I think Damian Priest could be a really, really big star if they get behind him. His promo, he needs a little bit more work on. His promos aren't always the best. And he got very rattled last week when the crowd was just yelling CM Punk at him, and but who wouldn't in Chicago? And that's happening. So, but his in-ring ability is amazing. Him and John Morrison have put on really good matches. I know we've seen them wrestle probably almost 1,000 times now. We're probably going to see the 100th match of Miz and Damian Priest sometime soon. And so especially
when Priest wins that U.S. title.
Yeah. And I think, I hope that they do a whole lot with Priest. I hope they kind of give him a really strong run, let him just go through some pretty bigger names than normal. And then, maybe when he loses it, he's in that main event title scene. So, but I definitely agree. Those 5 guys have done really, really good stuff. The Miz has done really good stuff the last 4 or 5 years. Like he's been top. He's been at the very top, carrying everything for a long time. So
I will say this till the day that I die. I think that man is the most underrated wrestler in WWE. He does not get the love from the people that he deserves. That dude has been on top of his game, like you said, for the last 4 or 5 years. I mean,
and only been injured once. Yeah. Yep. So and even while he was injured, he was still on TV. So like he's definitely a guy that is. You can't lose him. Like you can't. He's one of those guys that you just can't lose. And so that's very important.
I totally agree. And to me, I know they announced that it's going to be Sheamus and Damian Priest for the United States title coming up at SummerSlam. I'd make it a fatal 4-way. I'd throw John Morrison and Ricochet in there and just give those 4 guys the big stage and let them just do their thing.
Yep, I definitely agree. I think it would be a lot of fun.
All right, let's move on to NXT, which is currently happening right now, but obviously we've got some NXT news to talk about. As we're watching on the screen right now, we're seeing the face-to-face between Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Cole, which will most likely confirm they're going to have their rubber match, their 3rd match at NXT TakeOver 36. That's just me guessing, but lots of rumors floating around this week about Adam Cole's contract. Will he? Won't he? Who's offered? Who hasn't offered? What meeting has he had? What meeting hasn't he had? What's your thoughts on all this speculation? I know it's all rumor and innuendo right now. Like I said, no real concrete stuff. But what's your thoughts so far that we're seeing as we get closer to the proverbial end of his contract at NXT TakeOver?
I honestly have no idea what to expect, because now there's also reports that like Pete Dunne's contract is set to end really soon as well. So like both of those 2 guys are guys that NXT, especially NXT at this point in time, cannot lose. Like you can't lose both of those guys. Even if one goes to the main roster, you have to keep the other one around Otherwise, you are starting to really cut that brand at the knees, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit, I'm sure, as well. The contract that I saw that they were possibly offering Adam Cole was a ridiculous amount of money. A ridiculous amount of money, and money that he absolutely deserves to have.
Sure he does.
And I just hope it's not one of those situations where they're going to give him a lot of money just to keep him under the WWE brand and then not do anything with him. That's my biggest fear about this whole thing, about him re-signing with them. But to me, while last week I was leaning more that he would probably sign with AEW, I'm right in the middle. I have no idea. Yep. I don't believe the report that Tony Khan has not offered a contract or at least talked to Adam Cole, because that's stupid on his part if he hasn't.
Right. Tony's the one that said that he hasn't.
Yeah.
So I think he said it on Busted Open that he said he hasn't talked to him. I think that's total BS. I
think he's just trying to. I think the CM Punk Bryan Danielson thing got way out of control for them.
And he's trying to.
And he's trying not to do that with Adam Cole if Adam Cole does come with him. So I think that's just to kind of keep as much of it behind closed doors as he can. But I don't believe that he hasn't talked to him at all. And so, especially after some of these releases, especially one specific release, now everything kind of is more up in the air. Not necessarily more up in the air, but he kind of has another reason to kind of go away to go with somebody else and do something that he's already done and go into another brand. And there's a whole lot of other stuff. So, but I think right now I'm in the middle of, I wouldn't be surprised if he re-signed. I wouldn't be surprised if he went to AEW. He can do whatever he wants to do at this point. And, I think that's really important. I'm more than likely, I would be shocked if this rubber match is going to take place at the next takeover. I would be shocked if it's not a loser leaves NXT match, and Kyle O'Reilly more than likely goes over. I could definitely see that happening, and then maybe he goes in the main roster. Maybe he goes straight to AEW because he doesn't have a no compete clause after this. So there's no telling what could really happen. And that's kind of what is so fun about like having AEW in the mix. While they're not as big as WWE, just having them have their continued success. Now we're in this like bidding wars. Well, and like this guy can show up anywhere he wants to. And it's a lot of fun that we can see this.
Listen, you're a youngin', okay? Mm-hmm. You're how old?
24.
24. Okay. You're 24. So you were being born right in the middle of the Monday Night Wars.
Yep.
When this was a thing. So it was, and I was a kid, so I didn't read the dirt sheets.
Right.
But just looking back on it and the will he, won't he, where are they going, who's he going to sign, who's going to pop up next kind of thing. That's exactly what the Monday Night Wars were. Yep. Except now, all those people who were just itching for the Monday Night Wars, we all are keyboard warriors and we all know what's going to happen before it's going to happen.
Right.
So it is fun, but it's not as much fun because we tend to spoil it for ourselves.
Right.
And we make it harder on these companies to try to surprise us.
Yeah.
So guess what they do? They lie to us.
Yeah.
So
that's kind of like the worst thing about this whole CM Punk thing is like, could you like the pop if he does whatever, show up in AEW, the pop's going to be massive. Could you imagine though if there was no talk of him even showing up at all and he just returned out of nowhere? How loud of a pop he would get? How exciting he would get? That's what made like the John Cena thing even at Money in the Bank. All the reports were saying that Cena had a movie he was shooting and he couldn't get away from. And then when he showed up, it was like it was a huge deal. So it's definitely makes it harder to do some of these surprises. The last big surprise I can remember that they got away with was probably the Hardy Boys at WrestleMania a few years ago.
Edge.
Am I missing one? Oh yeah, Edge. Well, I heard some reports about Edge, but there was like no.
Everybody did. Yeah. But he denied it.
Yeah.
Every time it would come up, he said no.
I guess the Hardy Boys would be the last one where like we had no indication that they were even going to be there because they wrestled in Ring of Honor the night before,
right?
And then all of a sudden they were showing up at WrestleMania because that was a huge pop that they got.
That's true. Yes, that's very true.
But other than them, that's the last one that I can really remember where it was just a complete random shock that was really surprising and cool and not Goldberg. So that was nice.
Oh, geez. All right. So speaking of these releases, as I mentioned at the top of the show, there were releases that happened during Friday Night SmackDown. It was all NXT people. You had guys like Bronson Reed, which is the big one, Bobby Fish, Mercedes Martinez, Leon Ruff, Jake Atlas, Tyler Rust. There were quite a few others. You may have those names in front of you. I don't. Honestly, man, maybe you know that I watch NXT every week and I follow it, and it's my favorite show. But I'm looking at this list. Honestly, man, I'm not surprised by any of them. I'm really not.
I think
the one, here's the one that shakes me a little bit, is Tyler Rust.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is because I feel like they were pushing Diamond Mine. So why immediately yank a guy out?
Yeah. Unless there was some backstage thing, but other than that, you know, that's still, that doesn't make sense at all either.
Tyler Rust is the one that shocks me. The rest of, even Bronson Reed, I'm kind of like, okay, I can see that.
Bronson Reed is the one that's weird to me, because he was wrestling on Main Event, and he was like up there with Karrion Kross on Main Event Wrestling, and he just won the North American title, had a great match with Adam Cole, and he's one of those guys that could be like a big guy. And you know, he's one of those guys that could definitely be a guy that could go into the main roster. I mean, to me, he seems like the guy that Vince McMahon would love to have. He's a big guy that can talk really well on the mic for the most part, and can put on some great matches, which I know Vince doesn't really care about that as much, but he's athletic and quick and can do all these different things. So that one kind of surprised me the most. The one that hurt the most for me, and I saw it coming, but the one that hurt the most for me is Bobby Fish.
Yep.
Because of the fact that now, more than likely, we won't see a Wyatt family reunion, a Shield reunion, or an Undisputed Era reunion.
Yep. And
three of the best factions in the last 15 to 20 years we're not going to see anymore. And so that's that's the thing that sucks the most about this. You know, I kind of get it, because obviously out of the four from the Undisputed Era, he was definitely the lowest one because of the injuries, and you know, he just never really did anything by himself. So I get it. It's just, it seems like they are, I don't know. It's weird. NXT is in such a weird spot right now. Yep. They don't need to lose a lot of people. They don't need to lose people. And you know, I posted this on Twitter, and I think I tagged you guys in it, but like the whole Nick Khan to me is one of those guys that I think he is not doing the best for the WWE, doing the best for the company. He cares more about money than about making money. And that seems weird, but like he if they get a little bit in the red, he's starting to find ways to cut money. Instead of, you know, allowing the product to do its thing and to start rebuilding and regaining. I mean, you're coming back off a pandemic. Everything's not going to be right back where it was when you first went into the pandemic. It's going to take some time to get back to a relative normal. But cutting these guys, you're just giving more ammo to some of these other companies that are coming after you now, where 10, 15 years ago, they were nowhere near you. But now as you start to release some of these guys, and they're getting bigger names, and they're getting bigger talent, and they're getting better TV deals, you know, they're going to start to creep back up and start to haunt you a little bit. And so I think this whole releasing thing, I get it. You want to save money, but find other ways to save money other than releasing guys that could help your company at some point down the line.
Sure. Well, and you alluded to it earlier. We don't really know what direction NXT is going. There's a lot of rumor and speculation going around that basically it's going to be a brand overhaul, and we're totally going to change everything. And Vince is tired of this, and Bruce Pritchard's tired of that, and Nick Khan's tired of spending money, and yada yada yada. Whatever. We lost the war to AEW. Whatever the narrative you may or may not believe. I am under the impression of, yes, it seems bleak. It seems dreary. It seems like all of our favorite guys are going. It seems this, that, or the other. I'm just going to wait and see.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have any other like gut reaction other than I'm just going to wait and see what happens, because reason I say that is because NXT has seemed bleak and dreary before when we lost a bunch of people and there was so much turnover, and it's like, how are they going to recover? Guess what? They always do.
Yeah.
So it may not be as big as it once was. We might not be selling out the Barclays Center for TakeOver and all that other stuff, but I think NXT is going to recover, and I think it's going to be fine.
would agree with that for the most part. The only thing I would say is that the last time this happened, there wasn't another rival company around that is really hot right now.
And that's true. That's very true.
That is going to take more people. Like somebody coming out of Ring of Honor when Adam Cole and even Ciampa and Gargano and even Kevin Owens signed. Like when they signed with NXT, there wasn't really anywhere else to go other than NXT, WWE, other than like New Japan, but that wasn't going to be as big as WWE. And I'm not saying AEW is necessarily as big, but it's gaining a lot of traction, and it's gaining a lot of traction quickly.
Right.
And my biggest thing is that it doesn't, the way WWE is acting right now, it does not seem like it's a company that is thriving, but it's a company that seems like it's barely surviving at this point.
Which is very interesting.
Which is very interesting, and it seemed out of nowhere.
Well, we talked about this last week, and like we don't know what the numbers look like of what they potentially lost out on from 2020. You know what I mean? So there's a good chance that a lot of big companies operate a quarter or 2 quarters or 6 months behind.
Right.
So we may just now be seeing the effects of what they potentially lost out on. That's what this could be. So there's a good chance. I think I was talking to Jared about this the other day. There's a good chance that some of these guys gets scooped up by AEW and gets used on Rampage and used on Dark Elevation. And guess what? They don't get over there. So then what happens? Well, if WWE is the family that they all talk about and there's always a place for you, they might be coming back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Bronson Reed. I'm not saying Bronson Reed's not going to succeed somewhere else, but look what happened with Samoa Joe. Oh, man. Timeout. 2 out of 3 falls. O'Reilly and Cole. Traditional match. Street fight. Steel cage.
Yeah.
There you go. There's your takeover match. Wow. Sorry, just saw that on my screen.
And they're doing LA Knight versus Cameron Grimes again for the $1 million title. And if Cameron Grimes loses, Ted DiBiase also becomes a butler.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I can't wait to go back and watch that promo where DiBiase came out earlier. That was sweet. Anyway, but think of what happened with Samoa Joe. You know, he got released from WWE and immediately went to NXT.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that'll happen to Bronson Reed, but I'm not going to rule it out.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree with that. I just think that if that was going to happen, which it could happen. I mean, there are some speculation report right now that Bray Wyatt could show back up in WWE. I mean, he posted that picture of looked somewhat like the Fiend mask and says, "You'll never kill me" or something. So, I mean, he could show back up. Who knows? But to me, Samoa Joe is one of those guys that fan backlash, I think, caused them to send him to NXT more than anything. And I think, Bronson Reed is one of those guys. I don't want all these guys. I'm not saying I want everybody that releases or gets released from WWE to go to AEW. I don't want that. I think Bronson Reed needs to go to New Japan. Because I think Bronson Reed in New Japan would be absolutely amazing. A lot of these other guys, I think guys like Leon Ruff and Jake Atlas, I think they could do some decent stuff in AEW, but I think they would be mid-card, low-card style. And I think they're going to be that no matter where they go.
Sure.
But no disrespect to them, because Leon Ruff he's a good wrestler. It's just what they are, I think.
They're small fish in a big pond.
Yeah.
They really are.
And so those are the ones. I think Bobby Fish is going to be fine. No matter where he goes. I think he's one of those guys that he has a lot of indie cred that no matter where he goes, he's just a big name.
That guy, that's a New Japan guy right there.
Yeah. I think he's a New Japan Ring of Honor guy, for sure. I think that would work. Even maybe Impact. I think he could go to Impact and do something.
Sure.
And so
now I think that's where Bronson Reed would fit the best.
Impact, yeah.
I think he could go to Impact and, no pun intended, make an impact.
Yeah.
Really
definitely. I agree with that. It's just, especially with the rumors that there may be more releases coming at some point this year.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of big names like Braun Strowman and some of these other guys, Samoa Joe and Bray Wyatt, and you're seeing more common names being released. It's making it a lot harder now to get excited about things, because that there seems to be a bleak end. And there are some reports, and I wouldn't always believe the dirt sheets, but there are some reports that even USA and Fox are not happy about some of these releases, because they understand that when you release some guys, like Bray Wyatt, like Bronson Reed, you're going to lose a lot of viewership, or you're sending viewership somewhere else. Wherever they go, those viewers are going to go somewhere else. And so it does seem to me like NXT or Vince and them have kind of said, well, AEW's already beaten NXT, so we don't really care what happens to NXT. Just get rid of all of them, get rid of all the ones that don't matter, and let's just try to save money wherever we can. And I don't think that's necessarily the best thing. I think that's going to hurt more than it's going to help in the long run.
Right. I tend to agree with you, but like I said, I'm going to play the wait and see card. I'm going to give them a chance. I'm going to see what happens. I don't know. Honestly, I feel like as wrestling fans, that's all we can do at this point. I mean, we can sit and talk about it like we do here on the podcast, but it just, I don't know. Let's trust the process and let's see what happens.
And like, if these guys get released and they're just going to go be stars somewhere else, and we can go watch them somewhere else, where they more than likely have more creative, free creative ability to do what they want to do, and so that's not necessarily a bad thing either. So while these releases are definitely hard and tough because they're losing a job, these guys are going to find work somewhere else, and maybe do something better, kind of like what Drew McIntyre did, be better in the independent scene than he actually was in his first run in WWE, and then be someone that everybody wants to have on their brand and have in their company.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. You're 100% right. All right, man, let's put a bow on this episode. Let's move on. We cannot close up shop without handing out our high spots and turd sandwiches, the highs and the lows in this week of professional wrestling. I have already mentioned my turd sandwich, and that is the gimmick change of Elias. It's just awful. I'll get off my soapbox on that. What is your turd sandwich for this week?
My turd sandwich is going to be the same as it was last week, I think, and it's Eva Marie. Just, Eva Marie. Like, Eva Marie is just useless on my TV. Dewdrop, Viper. Viper's great. I think she should be by her own self. I'm not even really upset with like the whole Lily thing. Like, it's weird, but it's spooky weird, and that's all they can do, and it's fine. Exactly. It's whatever. Eva Marie is just nope.
Okay. All right. I will throw it back to you for your high spot of this week. What was the best thing coming out of wrestling this week?
The best thing coming out of wrestling this week, I think, was the entire presentation of Malachi Black. His entrance and his ring gear and everything, it was perfect. And it's exactly what he needs to be. I love that he's still selling the eye injury, which I don't know if you've seen this, but Buddy Murphy released a video. Buddy Murphy released a video of him in a prison jumpsuit, and Malachi Black released a video. I don't remember how long ago, talking about you can't get into a fight with Matthew. Look what he did to your eye. And that's Buddy Murphy's real name is Matthew. And so the rumor right now, or the speculation, is that Buddy Murphy may show up in AEW to either confront Malachi Black, join Malachi Black, whatever it is. So that's really, I love that they're taking stuff they were doing in WWE and bringing it with them into AEW. It makes it compelling and interesting.
Yep.
And I think that AEW is going to get behind Malachi Black, and I think they're going to push him hopefully to the moon.
I think he should join. I think Buddy should join Malachi. I think that would be interesting for sure.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say if we noticed or if we saw the growth of Malachi's black eye. Have you noticed this?
Yes.
So apparently the black is getting bigger on his eye. And there's a whole explanation that Jason sent me from Reddit today that I don't remember exactly what was said, but there's something to do with it that means something. I don't exactly remember, but go check it out for yourself. It's on Reddit. It's a really, really interesting read. But yeah, that's really cool. My high spot of the week, I have got two. My first one, specific to the wrestling world, was the Edge and Seth Rollins promo from Friday night. I thought it was fantastic.
Yep.
I think the way that they can push buttons, calling Rollins and Edge light, very much like, and now they're going to wrestle, which pays it off. But what I was going to say was, back in 19, when Goldberg and Ziggler wrestled, the lead up to that was them calling Ziggler a Shawn Michaels light.
Yeah.
And Shawn was doing the promos, but they didn't wrestle. Yeah. So I always thought that was great. I love when wrestlers pull in that realism, You know, I think that's fantastic. I really do.
Yeah.
So that's my high spot. I can't wait for that match. It's going to be awesome. I don't know who I'm going to cheer for. Speaking of that, if you listened last Monday to last Monday's episode, Jared and I dropped the bombshell that we are planning to go to Las Vegas for SummerSlam. We have our flights, we have our tickets, we have our hotel. As long as the world doesn't shut down, we are going to be in Las Vegas, which leads me to my big announcement for this week. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are listening to us on SportsWire, that is sportanarium.com/player, formerly Sportanarium Radio. They're in the midst of brand changes right now. If you are listening to us on that, this news is for you. If you are listening to us on your regular podcast feed, or you're listening to us and watching us on YouTube, this news is for you as well. If you've listened to our show for a while now, you know that we do live recaps after all the pay-per-views, after all the big events. Andy took on the Double or Nothing one. Andy, you and I did the NXT Great American Bash. We've done WrestleMania. We've done we've done all the pay-per-view events. Well, SummerSlam is going to be no exception. However, instead of our normal YouTube and Facebook platforms, we are going to be broadcasting live on SportsWire. So after SummerSlam, as soon as it goes off the air, myself and Jared will be broadcasting live from Las Vegas, along with Tom Bryce, who is the owner at SportsWire. He is going to be sort of captaining the ship and producing the show, because we're going to be taking live call-ins. So your instant reaction to the show, instead of just commenting on YouTube or Facebook, you can call in and talk to us. All right. I'm going to flash the number up on the screen. If you're watching on YouTube, it is area code 347-282-7735. Again, that is 347-282-7735. We're going to plug this throughout the next couple of episodes, but you can listen to us live. Sportanarium.com/player. Again, call in 347-282-7735. This is the official SportsWire SummerSlam post show. It's going to be us. It's going to be awesome. Andy, that is huge announcement for us here at the Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast. Just another step in getting the word out about how much fun we have on the show.
Yeah, man, it's going to be a lot of fun. You know, taking a lot of live reactions, not just from us, but from other people that like are wrestling fans and watching and talking about it. You know, where we always say that we are just wrestling fans that like to talk about wrestling. And so we want other wrestling fans to talk wrestling with us. You know, my wife won't talk wrestling with me, so I need other friends that will talk wrestling with me. So definitely call in and, you know, talk about how great that Roman Reigns, John Cena, or Seth and Edge match was, or how bad Dominic beat up his dad. Talk about all that stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun.
All those things. It's going to be great. SummerSlam is going to be a stacked card. So ladies and gentlemen, make sure you tuned in next Thursday. As I mentioned earlier, it's myself, it's Andy York, and it's my brother from another mother, Jared Justice. All three of us previewing NXT TakeOver 36, which we've gotten some big news about tonight on NXT, and we will be previewing SummerSlam. So next week, we're going to try to table the talk about AEW and the other promotions. Andy, I know there's a big New Japan event coming up this weekend. I know that the big clash between Kenny Omega and Andrade is this weekend in AAA. We will talk about those at a later date. But for next week, it's all about SummerSlam and it's all about NXT. Speaking of this week and next week, Andy, tell everybody what's coming up on the Shandy Show.
Yeah, so we're actually going to be talking more about the Suicide Squad, which, you know, like I've mentioned every week leading up to it, John Cena is a part of, which he actually surprisingly was like one of, if not the best parts of the entire movie. It's awesome. Definitely his best performance, so props to him. We're going to be talking about that, plus a lot of other Marvel news that's going to be coming out. There's a Disney Plus show, What If, that's starting tonight, actually, Tuesday night, that we're going to be talking about as well. So there's a whole lot of new stuff we're going to talk about, waiting for that Spider-Man Far From Home trailer, No Way Home trailer to finally drop for December, because we're all waiting for that movie to blow our mind. So waiting for that. But we're going to talk about a whole lot of different stuff.
So if that kind of stuff is your bag, I encourage you to head on over wherever you find the Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast. That's where you can find the Shandy Show. You can follow them at the Shandy Show on Twitter. Make sure you do that. Make sure you support that show and Andy's efforts there. It's a fantastic show. I've been a guest on there several times, and it's a blast. So make sure you go check that stuff out. Make sure, again, that you're following us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're at PBW Podcast on all three of those platforms. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Subscribe wherever you find your podcast. If you want the video version of the show, make sure you go check it out. If you're listening on SportsWire and you are new to the Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast, welcome to the family. We have 35 back episodes that you probably haven't heard yet. You can find those on YouTube and wherever you find your podcast. Go check them out. Let us know what you think. We love our fan interaction. Make sure you do that. Andy, it's always a blast, man. Like you said, your wife doesn't talk wrestling. My wife doesn't talk wrestling. That's why we have each other.
Exactly. And we're getting ready to start Kentucky football back up, and Reds baseball is getting hot. It's just a great time to be us right now. So I'm living life and loving it.
It is. It is fantastic. The NFL is right around the corner as well. So a good time. For Mr. Andy York, my name is Chris Belcher. Thank you so much for checking out the Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast this week. We will catch you guys down the road.